Timbers from the ship were used to build their new home, Ocean Camp. The wheelhouse became the new galley. Hurley ingeniously converted part of the ship's boiler into a stove, heated by penguin skin and seal blubber. They followed a new daily routine. The main activity became hunting for food and fuel. Each man knew rescue was impossible. They were managing to stay alive, but to what end? This was not what they'd pictured before departing. Artist George Marston had left a letter for his daughter.
Dear Heather, Daddy is so pleased that you're growing up a big girl that he sends you his love and wishes you many happy returns. He went to the seals and penguins and told them about little Heather, and the lady seal was so pleased she let Daddy hold her little baby. Soon now Daddy will be coming home, and you must come down to the ship to meet him. We will go away and have a lovely time.
They had a pretty miserable time on the ice. But having said that, in the end, at every turn, Shackleton's enemy was not the ice, but it was his own people, in the sense it was their morale. That was the foe. He had to prevent their morale from crumbling. The ice was nothing. Anybody can deal with the ice, but to deal with the human spirit, that is very difficult.
Shackleton's example set the tone, attested orderlies.
His unfailing cheerfulness means a lot to a band of disappointed explorers like ourselves. He never appears to be anything but the acme of good humor and hopefulness. He is one of the greatest optimists living.
A month after abandoning ship, a bout of sciatica sent Shackleton to his tent for 2 weeks. Emerging after his forced confinement, he made the surprising decision to renew the march to land. In his memoirs, he claimed,
"A buzz of pleasurable anticipation went round the camp at this announcement."
Nothing was further from the truth, revealed Greenstreet.
I sincerely hope he will give up the idea directly. There have been great arguments about the matter in our tent.
In their effort to reach land, Shackleton's men harnessed themselves like dogs. The loaded lifeboats weighed more than a ton apiece. Painfully, the men hacked their way through pressure ridges obstructing their path. At times, they trudged up to their knees in snow. On the 4th day, McNish stopped. Earlier, the carpenter had proposed to build a sloop from the wreckage of the Endurance. Shackleton had rejected the offer. Now McNish rebelled. He refused to continue, maintaining that his duty to obey orders had ended when the ship went down.
Chippy was a man who didn't like being told what to do. You know what I mean? It's all one who you were. If Chippy didn't like it, Chippy would tell you. This is the kind of man he was. I mean, authority meant nothing to him.
Shackleton dramatically reasserted his command. He called the men together and read ship's articles. Despite the loss of the ship, he announced, the crew would continue to be paid wages until they reached port. McNish backed down.
No leader on the edge of survival can tolerate the least threat to his authority. And Shackleton, in fact, was prepared to shoot the carpenter if necessary, and he would have been justified because there was a hidden danger here that the carpenter was only voicing the opinions of 2 or 3 other members of the crew, and more for all we know. And had this not been crushed immediately, the whole party would have disintegrated.
2 days after the standoff with McNish, Shackleton was forced to realize his own error. He called a halt to the march. The strain was immense.
Turned in, but could not sleep. I'm anxious. Everyone working well, except the carpenter. I shall never forget him in this time of strain and stress.
Shackleton had averted a mutiny, but he could not quell the doubts that threatened to erode his authority. A week of back-breaking effort had left his men worse off than before. Precious equipment had been left behind. Life at their new base, Patience Camp, would be much harder. More questions arose about the boss's judgment. Food supplies were running out, but Shackleton would not let them stockpile penguin and seal meat. He insisted he would get them off the ice before winter. Lionel Greenstreet, the ship's first officer, openly questioned the boss's decision.
His sublime optimism all the way through is, to my mind, absolute foolishness. Everything was going to turn out all right, and no notice was taken of things possibly turning out otherwise. And here we are.
You're a bloody pessimist,
retorted Shackleton. For once, orderlies voiced the fears of many. They had to have meat, he put on record, in the event of another winter on the floes.
It was important to have, just like ammunition, to have supplies. And the famous statement of Wellington, wasn't it, that the army marches on its stomach? That seemed to him to be elementary.
Through it all, Shackleton held the camp to its daily routine and maintained his positive outlook. In the end, it was the boss's will that prevailed.
Shackleton's great characteristic was the ability to compel loyalty, even against his men's better judgment. Now, this has got to do with some force of character, some flame that burns within a man. You can't learn it, you can't develop it. It's something you radiate. It's a sheer force. He had this.
Game grew harder to find. There was no food for the dogs. Shackleton ordered his second-in-command to shoot some of the teams.
This duty fell upon me. It was the worst job I ever had in my life. I have known many men I would rather shoot than the worst of the dogs.
Hurley paid a last tribute to his companion.
Hail to thee, old leader Shakespeare. I shall ever remember thee, fearless, faithful, and diligent.
Within weeks, the remaining teams were shot, and this time, eaten.
Frank Wilde shot the last of our faithful dogs, of which we kept the 5 young ones for food, and their flesh tastes a treat after living so long on seal meat, and this last 14 days on almost nothing.
As the men drifted to the edge of the pack, the ice began to disintegrate. One day, orderlies awoke feeling seasick. The ice was now so thin, they could feel the swell of the ocean beneath. Soon, nothing would be left under their feet.